All right, so let's just do a little introduction into variables. So variables are name storage. They're a way we can store data into something that has a name. You can kind of think of it as a bucket. There's really three main parts to a variable. A variable is going to have a name. It's going to have a value. And I like to point out that value is going to have a specific type of data. You know, in JavaScript, we know those are like numbers, objects, strings, booleans, etc. So that's what I mean by type of data. And then it's going to have a scope, which we'll talk about in a different video. So in JavaScript, to create a variable, we just use the let keyword. Let x equal 1. So now you can say the name of this variable is x and the value is 1, and the type of this variable or the type of 1 is a number. Console.log x. Let's go ahead and run this. There we go. X is equal to 1. So this, you can just think of x as like a different name for 1. So now we can do, since x is just a number, we can do math on that. Now something about, when, variable has a name, we want this name to be descriptive. So one of the actual more challenging things of coding can be naming variables and functions and other things descriptively so they describe what they're doing. For example, like what is this x variable? I know it's a number, but what is it representing? X is kind of a vague name. It's kind of a bad variable name. So let me give you a good example of a good variable name. Say something like let current temperature. So now I have this current temperature and the value is 75. But later in my code, when I'm reading it, I now know, what that is. It's just kind of like in real life, when someone says current temperature, you know what that word means. You know that's going to be a number. I could even maybe get a little more specific and say like, in Fahrenheit, or it could be in Celsius, like to rename that variable. Maybe this is in Fahrenheit. Cool. So that's an example of, a variable. Likewise, we could have we could also describe the temperature as maybe not in Fahrenheit, but maybe as like a word, like warm, hot, or cold. And that way I could make it like a string. So I could have current temperature, I don't know, range, or see what I mean? It can be hard. Like, what is this current temperature description? I can just leave this as current temperature. So I can have current temperature equal warm. So I could also check, just to show you these data types, we can log the type of these. So this current temperature from line 17. This is a number. And then our current temperature equal to warm is a string. And see, I can do an equality check by using the 3 equals to see that these actually do equal these values. Oh, did I get these reversed? Oh, this is type of. I need to get rid of this typo right here. And just check the variable themselves. Oh, and that's 75. Come on. There we go. So those are both true. See, my current temperature in Fahrenheit is equal to 75. Another way I could maybe if we're talking more about data types or sorry, variables, let's look at the keyword const, because we looked up here, we have these two keywords, let and const. So what is a const? A constant is a variable that you want to use in your program that might not change. So if we're talking about temperature, something that might be constant is, the freezing point. Let's do like a /C for Celsius, and that's going to be 0 degrees. Now, I would not expect, let's just assume how freezing temperature works is if you have like a standard, atmospheric pressure, the freezing temperature in Celsius is always 0. I would never expect that value to change. So I'm going to declare that as a const. And sometimes with constants, we'll make it all uppercase. If it's kind of like this hard-coded value, which it is right here. So now I can store that value into a variable. The reason why it's nice to have it in a variable is because let's say, later in my code where I can't really see this declaration because that happens quite a bit, I might have like a little comparison. If current temperature is, less than or equal to degrees C, it is freezing outside. I could log that to the console and do an else. We'll talk more about if-else statements, but I think we can kind of get the grasp of this even right here. So what I can do is I can do a little check. And since I've named these variables well, and it starts to read very well. So I can say it almost like I would in English. If, the current temperature is less than equal to freezing C, it's freezing outside, else it's not. So if we run this, it is not freezing outside, I should say. Because my current temperature right now, I set it right here, is 75. Now, if let's say, it changed later in my program, I'll just hard code it, but if it changed to 12, I need to save this, do a little check here. Oh, sorry, I need to make this less than 0 because we're in Celsius. So let's do -1. Okay, let's see here. Why I'm kind of expecting it to say it is freezing outside, and now it's logging it is not freezing outside. Oh, current temperature. Oh, now here's something that you can get yourself into trouble with. So I have two variables declared here. I have this current temperature, which is equal to the string warm. And then I have this current temperature in F, equal to -1. So let's go ahead and switch this one out. It's freezing outside. But now I'm kind of in a little bit of a different issue here. And this kind of goes to how important, naming variables can be, So I have current temperature in F is less than freezing C. So since I've kind of been a little more descriptive in these names, I might have realized, oh wait, I'm trying to compare my current temperature in Fahrenheit to the freezing temperature in degrees Celsius. So my code is telling me there's a little bit, or the semantics is telling me there's a little bit of a error there. But notice my code is working, but this is a subtle bug here. So what I need to do is, come define a variable for freezing in Fahrenheit, that's 32 degrees, and I can use that variable. It's freezing outside. See, this one worked, but it's still good to fix this because that definitely could have wound up into different errors because, obviously the freezing degree in Fahrenheit is not the same as Celsius. Cool. Yeah, so just the main takeaways here are, with variables, a variable has a name, it has a value. We want to try to be descriptive in the name so we can, later in our code, by naming variables descriptively, they become more meaningful and our code becomes more readable. So cool. We briefly did an if statement right here. Let's, in our next video, we'll talk about conditionals.